Women submit to men that they respect, and how you get their respect is...
Society's degenerate. It's not men and women.
You are apparently pretty controversial.
Everything I say seems to really trigger people. Masculinity, too, might be provocative. For women, as much as they want you to be emotionally connected to them and all this good stuff, the key thing that they unconsciously want is...
How do you know if she's into you or not into you?
But here's where high-value men get it wrong. They have incredible self-control in business, terrible with women.
Are daddy issues real?
Yes, in men and women. More so in men.
You mentioned deal breakers. What's the difference between deal breakers, red flags, and ick?
I love that. That is such a great question. Okay.
So Sadia, thank you so much for coming on the Iced Coffee Hour, also known as Sadia Psychology. You are apparently pretty controversial.
Apparently so, which
is
I
what
don't
you're telling
understand
us.
why, but apparently I'm very controversial.
And Graham and I have just been binging your content lately. It scratches an itch a lot of people have because you talk about like modern dating, what's wrong with it, what's good with it, and just general psychological advice. And I've loved it. It's helped tremendously.
Has it traumatized you? Because a lot of people leave feeling a bit traumatized from listening to my content.
No, I would say like I had these inherent like born beliefs and then culture kind of masks that. And I'm like, well, maybe this is actually true, but you're kind of reaffirming my like inherent born beliefs, which I feel like,
your natural instincts,
which has been nice.
Yeah, here's what I think about that though. If people listen to you and they're single,
yes,
I think they'll think there's a lot of work I have to put into myself to be desirable to the opposite sex. And I can't just be myself and bump through it and do the bare minimum and expect to be in a relationship where I'm happy.
You can do that, but then you have to have realistic expectations of what you'll receive in a partner. The problem lies when people want to just go be themselves, be totally like, floating along, but their expectations is they want the most beautiful woman in the world, or their expectation is they want the most successful man. You can be whoever you want to be as long as you're realistic about yourself and your expectations in your partner. When there's a mismatch between who you are and what you want, then you have to work on yourself and then you have to change. And I think the one thing I try and instill in the people that are watching it is the importance of self-respect in dating. If you go into dating without self-esteem and self-respect, it will turn into just one divorce after the other. So the reason I put a lot of emphasis on improving yourself is the moment we improve ourselves and enhance our self-esteem, we can then select better and we can maintain relationships better. But when we have low self-esteem, unfortunately, we're just delaying the divorce.
So what gives you the credential to speak on topics like this?
Of course, I'm a psychologist. I have studied psychology for many years. I taught it in colleges for many, many years. I've also done therapy for years on clients from particularly high-earning clients is kind of my clientele. I've lived in Dubai, and so I do psychotherapy on a lot of high-end clients. And this is where my message gets a little bit unfair because I do cater more to the successful men and the more attractive women, that kind of bracket of society. A lot of my viral clips tend to be related to that tiny niche. I do talk about the normal healthy relationship, but what seems to go viral is when I'm talking about that particular type of couple. So it does seem to be a little bit niche, and like a lot of people are like, oh, you're generalizing, it doesn't apply to me. I'm sure it doesn't apply to you, but if it doesn't apply to you, you keep it moving.
How is that different?
It's completely different, unfortunately.
So like, what's the difference between dating when you're really rich and dating as like a normal person?
As you get richer, your criteria in a woman gets more and more shallow. And what I mean by this is as men get more and more successful, they can outsource somebody that cooks, cleans, nannies. They can outsource all the normal traits that create a connection, like intelligent conversation. They usually are so busy all day having really important conversations. When they come home, they kind of just want a stress release. And a stress release, usually the best and quickest way to do that is a woman who is highly attractive and just good at sexual stuff. And that becomes what they're looking for. They no longer look for the woman that they can have long, intimate conversations with because they don't have the time for that. So they get more and more shallow in what they're looking for. And as a result, they attract a more and more shallow woman because the woman that is okay with a man being super, super busy, never connected, never home, always traveling, never get to spend time with him is a woman that will compensate that lack of connection with material things. So the relationship dynamic becomes very difficult and it becomes very transactional.
You mentioned something on another podcast that I found really interesting, which is that high achieving men, if they get like let's say a lesser intelligent or lesser achieving partner, then it's really challenging for them to engage in like fruitful discussions with their partner because they're so used to a higher level of like conversation. And then they start talking to their partner and like, okay, she's kind of droning. She's like not really talking about anything I'm interested in. And it doesn't end up working because of like that dissonance.
Yeah. And I would be more specific in that. I think there's two types of high achieving men. There's high achieving men that grew up with healthy self-esteem and just became high achieving. And as a result, they look for mutual intelligence, mutual value in a relationship. They want somebody, she doesn't have to be a CEO, but you're both intelligent, intellectual people. You both come from good homes. You both have, not necessarily perfect, but you both are looking for something deeper. Now, there's the other type of high achieving man whose entire identity is his money. Now, the one whose entire identity is his money is okay with a woman whose entire identity is her appearance, and she doesn't need to bring much to the table. But the man that's actually has far more to offer than just his money will look for a woman that has far more to offer than just her appearance. And so will look for more intellectual and emotional intimacy. He'll actually want to have a conversation. He'll want to get her opinion on things, and he'll want to do things with her. Whereas the one that its entire identity is his finances is okay with a woman whose entire identity is her appearance.
Do you find that those people are less happy overall?
Deeply, but they don't know what it is. It's like they don't know how to feed their soul. They're less happy because they think what they think is going to make them happier is these shallow qualities like money and women and sex, and they think that. But it's like filling in a cup filled with holes. It's going to constantly leak out of them because they're still deeply unhappy, because the real cure to their low self-esteem is something deeper than that, but they don't realize it. So they look for their self-esteem in shallow places. And the same with the women that look for it in materials.
Now, this might be an inappropriate question, but since we started off and you talked about one-on-one client, like consulting and stuff like that,
please.
Being like a very intelligent and obviously beautiful woman, have you ever ran into any issues where a guy comes in there for practice and like over time he develops feelings for you?
No, because I'll be very good at, I'm a professional at friend zoning myself. I am very good at desexualizing myself and friend zoning myself. But the main thing is, what makes it difficult for them to be attracted to me is part of a man's, especially when they're highly successful, they're so used to women that they're attracted to blowing smoke up their ass and just telling them that they're amazing, they're gorgeous, they're this, that, and that's what they're used to, because that's what women usually do to try and manipulate them. They've got me who's telling you, no, she's not actually attracted to you, she's just using you. Oh, no, she's still sleeping with her ex. Because I'm so deeply cutting through, it takes away a little bit of the attraction, because they're like, this woman is really going for me, and I'm a little bit tough with them because I'm a bit tougher with the men. So I think that it kind of makes them less attracted to me, because the kind of niceness that you get out of women and that kind of your self-esteem that you get from a woman giving you compliments is kind of derailed in therapy. You get straight to the truth.
So men are more attracted to their partner if they feel like their partner thinks they're like macho and like alpha and
and my whole job is to invalidate their thoughts. So if you say something, and I saw a study the other day, somebody actually told me, it was a comedian that was saying it, and she was saying that men and women both look for sense of humor, but their definition of sense of humor is completely different. For a woman, it's a man that makes her laugh. For a man, it's a woman that laughs at his jokes. So men love validation. They say something, the woman agrees, or she laughs as well, or she supports them. My whole role is to invalidate their thoughts and their experiences, because I have to challenge it. So the invalidation kind of decreases the attraction.
How did you become a relationship expert like this?
I don't know if it was deliberate. It was just my research. I was always in psychology of education. I used to focus a lot on education, psychology of education. But what would happen is I would realize that, especially with children, their relationship with their parents has a really big impact in their performance. And I started realizing that it then affects their relationship with their peers and then their romantic relationships. And I always was just more fascinated whenever I would talk about relationships. Because I was naturally more fascinated, it directed my kind of focus when it comes to studying it. So I'd study human nature a lot more, and I'd study relationships a lot more. But the key thing is, I was naturally observant with the opposite gender. I was always observant. I had lots of male friends. I would always be interested in the dynamic between men and women. I just found it really fascinating. So because I naturally paid attention to what men and women are doing, and I had an equal amount of male and female friends, I understood male and female behavior really well. And so I became a bit androgynous. I was never a girl's girl, and I'm just all about the girls. And I was never just all about the boys. I had an equal understanding of male and female thought processes. And when you have an equal understanding, you can understand how they connect with each other and what works and what doesn't work. And that's what I think helped me, is being a woman, but being very aware of the male mindset.
Can you provide your opinion on this theory that I came up with.
Yes, please.
So I think, I mean, I'm sure that this has probably been documented somewhere, validating or invalidating this, but I didn't grow up with a sister. I grew up with just an older brother, my dad, and my mom. And so when I would see my mom being like a little bit emotional, maybe like responding a little, more, I guess, emotionally to something, like I would kind of recoil at that because I'm like, oh, it's like a problem with, my mom or something like that. She's just like a very emotional person.
Yeah.
But I didn't grow up with a sister that would come through the door one day and for some reason get like really upset for something. And then she'd start going at it with my mom. And I didn't see that kind of like conversation or dialogue. And I think that not growing up with like either female friends or without a sister and seeing like women interacting with women kind of provides you with like a tainted ideology and like seeing women as this like foreign alien thing. And then you start talking to them like you're talking to guys. And then they say, no, you need to talk to women differently. And you start talking to women like completely different, like they're an alien and they don't like that either.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting observation. It's a really interesting observation. I like that you said that because one of the best insights into women that a man can have is seeing their dynamic with other women. Men tend to have this lens that women are innocent, they're soft and they're feminine and they're not manipulative and they're not unkind. So they naturally trust women easier. They naturally go into relationships with an element of trust and naivety about the real nature of women. When you see women interacting with other women, you see a completely different side of them. They can be quite catty. They can fight a lot. They can be mean. They can be manipulative. And you get an understanding is they're just like us. They're just human. They are capable of the same misdemeanors and nice things as men and women. So when you have just the only access is your mother, you kind of can put women a little bit on a pedestal and think that they're really soft or think that they're really kind or think that they've got great intentions. Seeing women in different lights, is particularly in a non-sexual light, you realize that they are just flawed like everybody else. So you start to select a bit better and you start to be aware of them a bit more. But if you see them as this delicate, soft, angelic thing, you'll treat them according to that. And they're not actually like that. They want to know that you understand human nature just as well as they do. And you understand their flaws just as much. And you're still accepting of all of those things. But being naive about them really puts them off.
While we're on the topic of dating, as a single bachelor out here in Las Vegas, one thing that is key when I go on dates is that I must have very high focus. And I've mentioned this several times before on the podcast, but for me, staying focused is incredibly challenging. It's been my entire life. Whether I'm trying to research a guest to come on the show or I'm reviewing a podcast episode, I oftentimes get very distracted. I've even tried everything from turning my phone black and white, silencing notifications. I even bought a box that has a timer on it that I can lock my phone up in and wearing noise-canceling headphones.
However, a few months ago, Magic Mind decided to send us a few samples of their productivity shot. And we absolutely loved it. So much so, in fact, that they decided to sponsor our podcast.
See, he like gingerly sips it. I just take it as a shot, and I love taking it that way.
It's amazing to sip on. I like it.
So on top of Graham just being an absolute weirdo, Magic Mind is a mental performance shot that you add to your daily routine for focus, mental clarity, and less stress. It also has 100% of your daily vitamins B, C, and D in every bottle.
I also really like that it's not heavy on caffeine, so you could drink it in the afternoon and not worry about falling asleep at night.
If you want to get some Magic Mind of your own, you can actually get around 50% off by using the code ICH with the link down below in the description to visit magicmind.com where you can claim it.
Magic Mind will also refund you 100%, no questions asked if you don't like it, even 100 days after buying it. Plus, they ship internationally to over 50 countries.
Guys, it's literally risk-free, 100 days money-back guarantee. If you're interested, once again, the link is down below in the description. Be sure to use code ICH. Thank you so much, Magic Mind, for sponsoring this episode, and back to the podcast.
So how are men and women psychologically different?
I think the things that in a relationship sense,
Just overall. Maybe in terms of priorities, it could be.
Priority for women is far more protection than men need. Men don't need protection from women. They need more appreciation and they need access and appreciation. They need access to her, like she gives them love and affection, but they need appreciation for what they do. That combination of access, even physically, they need sexual affirmation, they need physical touch, combined with appreciation, they're relatively happy. For women, they as much as they want you to be emotionally connected to them and all this good stuff, the key thing that they unconsciously want is somebody far more intelligent than them. And they don't mean intelligent like he's a CEO, he's a boss. They mean intelligent enough to recognize that when she might be lying. when something doesn't add up, when her truths are not adding up, when her behavior is not adding up. They like that in a man, because when they see that he can't connect the dots, they start to think that they are more intelligent than him, and then they start to think that they're more powerful than him, and then they can become manipulative. But when you're with a man that loves you and appreciates you, but he still wants to fact check what you're saying, and he still wants to make sure that, hey, listen, are you correct in this, what you're saying? And fact checking him, she appreciates that knowledge in the long run. So I think naively believing everything they say, they don't like it. Whereas for a man, naively believing what he says, he loves that in you. He thinks that you're his biggest fan.
Also coincided with distrust.
Yes.
Like in such a way, if she's saying, "Oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store," doesn't it seem a little excessive to be like, "Are you really going? Who was there at the grocery store?"
Here's what I would say: there's a fine line between being toxic and being aware. The key with awareness is you're not judging her based on, you're not like misinterpreting everything and distrusting and being toxic. What you're doing, it's more of a case of you've picked a woman who's naturally as invested in the relationship as you are to her. You're equally invested in each other. You're equally attracted to each other. You've equally sworn off alternatives. You've already made that assessment first, then you fall in love with her. What men do is kind of attach to her first and then figure out if she's invested, if she's attracted, and then hopefully make sure that and try and make her all of those things. The better thing to do is select a woman who's already interested, attracted, invested, and loyal to begin with, then go forward. So it's more the pre-checking than the aftermath.
It's interesting what you're saying seems to be a little bit countercultural to what at least people are saying nowadays. Like we had Justin Waller on the podcast, and he said one of the most important things a guy can do in a relationship is to set his frame, which I think is kind of what you were saying, where it's like guys need to kind of call out this sort of behavior. They should not allow, I don't know, disrespect or something like that. But
the key is pre. If you do it post, it's too late. It's pre in the selection process. I'm so sorry to interrupt. You were going to say, yeah.
No, I think that's a really important thing to stipulate. Yeah, I don't know. I found what he was saying really interesting. And also, you say that women need to be able to submit to their men. Can you explain that?
What I mean by me being able to submit is not blindly because he's the man and therefore I'm submitting and I'm going to worship you because you're the man. It doesn't work that way. It works more a way that I see that you are very protective. You're a good provider. You're protective. You're smart. You're intelligent. You can make decisions without me having to kind of guide you all the way. As a result of your traits, I naturally want to submit. It's a bit like having a great manager at work. When you have a manager that comes in late, doesn't know what they're doing, is erratic, it's hard for the workforce to respect their authority. But when the manager is fantastic, you naturally submit. So the key is women submit to men that they respect. So it's important to get their respect first. And how you get their respect is having a willingness to walk away when you are being highly disrespected and not allowing them a free pass to bad behavior simply because they look fantastic or simply because they're attached to you. Their behavior is causing the attachment, not you're not just blindly attached. So when a behavior is wrong, you reduce your attachment rather than increasing it. And that way a woman will realize that she has to behave right and be submissive in order to get your most love.
Now, how does this work from the woman's perspective?
From the women's perspective is when she has a great partner who she can submit to, she can finally relax in life. When she has a partner that she respects, he makes great decisions. He's very protective. He's not stupid. Like she can't manipulate him. She can't lie to him. She's forced to be a better person. And she can also relax a little bit. When she has kids, she knows that she can trust him with some of the decision making. And she doesn't have to be in this mode of where she's lying and hiding things. She can actually be her authentic self because she's chosen somebody who sees her for who she truly is and has chosen correctly. But when she chooses somebody who's naively selected her simply because of her appearance or has believed all her lies in the process to get the relationship, she has to maintain the act for the rest of the relationship, and it gets exhausting.
So my understanding of what you're saying, and I'm tying that into what I've seen currently, like in the dating area, is there's this trend online where girls say, if I go to the airport, I don't want to have to think about anything. And I don't know if you've seen that.
You turn your brain off. Yeah.
I see like these like shorts and stuff, and it's like a girl filming a guy, and he's carrying all the luggage, and he's like stressed out. He's like, okay, well, we got to get to this gate by this time. We got to go get a Starbucks over here because we didn't have like caffeine this morning. And the girl's just kind of like,
make my way downtown. Like,
I've never seen this. I don't know what side of
I've seen it
on, Jack.
And
We're on the wrong side of town.
Yeah, we get totally different algorithms.
I've seen it on like dating apps too.
Yeah.
Like girls have said what I'm looking for, a man to like
So I can
take
turn
care
my
of the
brain off.
airport or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And that's why that's
Never heard
why
this.
it's so important to be a man that she can't manipulate, because here's what it is. If for example I'm manipulating you and I'm stealing and I'm like telling you what you want to hear just so that I can get a free trip to Vegas or just so I can get free accommodation, and you catch me talking to my ex and I'm like, no, he just came over to drop something and he left within an hour. The moment you can't spot the threats that I'm positioning to you, I'm going to think that you can't spot the threats when we are going to the airport. You're not going to realize what's going on, or when somebody is asking for money and investment in the future and you're not spotting the threats in this, or when somebody is saying taking us down the wrong path and the driver, you're not going to be able to say to the driver, no, you're going down the wrong way. So if you can't spot it in us, we think you can't spot it in general, and therefore we can't turn our brains off. That's what it feels like.
In what situations should the man submit to the woman?
There are always occasions where women have far more knowledge than a man in a certain area, particularly when it comes to children, when it comes to families. They should be more emotionally intelligent. You submit to a woman when her requests are super reasonable and they benefit the relationship. And what I mean by this, like, for example, with my husband, I might say, I'm not very good at prolonged periods apart. I'm just not good at it. I'm not good at somebody who's like, okay, you go away for a week, I go away for a week. No worries. I'll see you at the end of the week. It's not natural for me. I need constant connection. He might not find that easy at first. He might think that's a bit annoying that I have to keep checking in and calling her because she feels uncomfortable. But if he knows that is just going to make me calmer and it's going to help me and it's going to make me calmer and it's going to make me a more submissive wife and it's going to make me feel more loved, it's okay to submit to that demand. That demand is not like, you can't do this and you better give me this. And it's not narcissistic demand. It's going to smooth out the relationship because I'm more likely to trust, you're more likely to trust, it makes us better. But when they shouldn't submit is when the demands are only beneficial to one person, and that's men and women. Whereas when the demands benefit the relationship overall, you both will be happy, the relationship will be stronger. Even if one person's not happier now, but overall the relationship will be better, it's totally fine to submit, man or woman. Yeah.
What would you say makes a high value man?
I would say generally a high value man is like, of course, look, I'm not going to deny some men are just built naturally at an advantage. A lot of the talk online is like men have to build their value and women are just born with it. That's simply not true.